forget. And just for students to know, we'll record and just show the speaker view for this. So if you're worried about your face or your background showing up, then that's okay. So welcome everybody. My name's Sophia. I think I've met most of you. So some of you are students in our Tech Core program, and some of you are students who are applying for internships with SLI this summer. So thanks for everybody being here for our guest speakers today. So just as an introduction, Diversity in Tech is the name of this speaker series that we've had this year, where we've invited people to speak about different aspects related to working in tech. So just for the our guests to know, we've had a couple different panels. We've had a panel where folks came and shared kind of non-traditional or different pathways of getting into tech. We've had a session on women of color in tech. So just different issues addressing race, equity, diversity, inclusion in the tech world. So really excited to have the three of you here today. Before we get started, I did want to have students introduce yourselves in the chat if you could. And since we don't have time for everybody to go around, if you could share in the chat box well, we know your name, but you can put your name in there anyway, your pronouns. And pronouns is just whatever pronouns, if you feel comfortable sharing, that you use, because we can't always assume your pronouns just by looking at you. And many of you have black screens anyway, so we can't even tell anyway. So your pronouns, your major, and one feeling or one word or feeling that comes to mind, and I'm writing this in the chat box, when you think about having an internship in tech. So name, pronouns, major, and one word or feeling that comes to mind when you think about having an internship in tech. And I know for many of you, if you have an internship lined up, this would be maybe the first for many of you. Maybe some of you have had an internship in a tech company before. But if you could put that all in the chat, we'll wait a minute or two, and then we'll do introductions. And if the speakers want to put that in the chat box too, go ahead. So for those who just joined us, we're doing a check-in in the chat box. So I'll just put it in one more time. If you can write your name, your pronouns, your major, one word or feeling that comes to mind when you think about an internship in tech. So we've got feelings of being excited or nervous, curious, new experience, great, inquisitive, excited, discovery. Oh, I like all these words. Cool, nervous. I would imagine. I am not in tech, and I don't plan on going into tech, but I would definitely be nervous. That would be my adjective as well. Scared, oh gosh. Cool. So I'd like to I'll do a brief introduction of our speakers. How we're going to do this is we'll spend about half the time with our speakers in this full group. And then when we're done hearing from the speakers in this full group, I'm going to put around a poll to see if you have a preference of somebody you'd like to go into a group, a breakout with. And then we'll have breakouts, probably in varying sizes. If you can either pick one individual you'd like to go speak with, or if you have no preference, then I'm going to group you all hopefully into somewhat even groups that will then have a chance for you to talk with one person and a small group of you in a breakout room. So we'll do that. That's how we'll spend our day today, or our hour and a half or so. And I think somebody just got in here late. I'm going to just drop in the chat box. If you can put in the chat box your introduction, that would be good. So I would like to introduce our three speakers. For those of you who came to last week's session where we talked about LinkedIn, or those of you who are part of Tech Core, you might have heard me talk about my use of LinkedIn. So for the guests, I'm a year into my job here. I'm not from tech. I'm not from this background. My background is education. So I've been using LinkedIn like nobody's business. I mean, at 1 month, I even got canceled of how many more searches I could do, which I didn't even know was possible because of the free version of LinkedIn. I did so many searches on people. I got, like they told me I can't make any more searches until next month. And I was like in the middle of the month. So I have used LinkedIn very well, and at least two of you, Melissa and Anthony, I found through LinkedIn. And I'll just say the way I did it was I looked up tech, I looked up tech equity, I looked up STEM equity, I followed people in my feed, and then just reached out with a personal note. And thank goodness Anthony and Melissa responded saying, hey, I'd love to speak to your students. Ebony, I met because she's involved with us. She was involved with a STEM mentoring program that we were part of. And then I found out she's majoring in computer science. I was like, gotta get on that because we've got our students here majoring in computer science. So, we really talk about the power of networking, especially in today's age with Zoom. It really has, us sitting at home and just kind of looking around and trying to meet new people. So that's kind of my short intro of each of you. I'll have each of you introduce yourselves a little bit more. So why don't we start off with, if you could just, introduce yourself and then maybe a little bit about, your educational and kind of background that got you to where you are right now. So, and maybe you can tell us where you're calling from too. So let's keep this part short and then I'll get into more deeper questions as we go. So Melissa, you want to give a start?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa. My educational background is kind of a weird path to tech. So I went to UC Berkeley and studied political economy, graduated in 2014, and then kind of landed into tech, by nature of being in the Bay Area. I'm calling from San Francisco right now.
Thanks, Melissa. Ebony?
Hi, everybody. My name is Ebony. I'm currently located in Oakland. I was studying computer science out in San Francisco. And then when the pandemic hit, I just kind of jumped into the job industry or the tech industry to get like a role and did a few internships and technical internships. And I'm currently an on-site implementation intern at Athena Health.
Cool, thanks, Ebony. And Anthony?
Yeah, so I originally, I studied computer science at Cal State Long Beach. I'm based out of Southern California now. I'm in Huntington Beach. And then after graduating, I interned at Slack and then worked there full time for 3 years. And I recently just left this past November to work on my own company. So that's what I do now.
Cool, and we'll definitely hear more from Anthony about his company too. So I'll kind of go through the questions that I have here. So the first question I have is, if you could share what identities have mattered the most to you as you pursue a career in tech, and how have those identities affected your path? So however you define that, just share whatever are those identities that have mattered in your journey to get where you are. So anybody want to start?
Here you go.
Go.
Yeah, so essentially being in engineering, being Black is definitely a rare case, to be completely honest, maybe 1 to 2% of people. Across my team, I was lucky to be on a team that had more people, so I definitely felt very welcomed. And even despite not having a lot of people like me on the team, they definitely did still make me feel welcome. But there was definitely like drawbacks, pros and cons to feeling different and feeling like a minority on the team. We don't always have the same, just because cultural backgrounds, we don't have the same interests, we don't have the same ways that we get along with each other, the same common ground. So it was a lot harder for me to kind of, feel like myself all the time and feel like I could relate to people on the same level. But then it definitely has drawbacks, or definitely has its pros, because I was then able to like branch out into other parts of the community. There's definitely ERGs to be a part of, and other resources to find people just like me. So it definitely made me branch out of just my team and just like the engineering org and find people all across the company. So it was beneficial. But being Black and being an athlete and being those types of things aren't a typical engineering background, and it was hard to finally kind of find my way at the beginning. But over time, definitely, I feel like I found my way.
Anthony, can you share what an ERG is so students know what that is?
Yeah, so that's an employee resource group, and I feel like that's pretty common, mainly in probably bigger companies. When you get to a couple hundred people or bigger, there's resource groups for whether you're a woman, whether you're LGBTQ. There's Black ERG groups, Mexican ERG, or sorry, Latin ERG groups. So all different types of groups where people can find people that are also common interests and from similar backgrounds.
Great. And actually, I forgot to ask the first part of the question. If you could also just kind of share how you got into computer science and engineering, kind of like what your path from being a kid, is it something you discovered later? Is it something you already always knew when you were young, and how you got into that?
Wait, me
Yeah,
still?
Anthony. Yeah,
Okay.
and then we'll go around.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so originally when I went to college, I had no idea what computer science was, but I was always like on a computer. I played computer games growing up and stuff like that. So I feel like I was well versed in what a computer was, but I just never really thought about what goes into that and what creates those things, like Google and all those things. So going into it, I was originally an aerospace engineering major the first 2 years. And that was just because I'm more of just like a math person growing up. So I was never afraid of like the engineering type of work. And it wasn't until the end of my second year where I tried to make my own company, like a t-shirt company, and I needed an app made for it, and it cost way too much money and I couldn't afford it at the time. So I figured I might as well just learn it myself. So I bought a book at Barnes and Noble, how to do like iOS development. And that was the first time I really like heard of development and computer science and all these things. And I just opened the book and just started to teach myself. So that's kind of how I got into it. And from then on, like that was towards the end of the second year. So that kind of bled into the summer. And as soon as I came back, I just changed my major, and I stuck with it ever since.
Wow, so it just took one book for you to make the shift. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Anthony. Ebony or Melissa, who wants to go next?
I'll go ahead and go. I definitely had a very unconventional path into tech. I was like working at restaurants and hotels and stuff like that, and I was really unhappy. I didn't feel like I was being challenged, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And one of my coworkers kind of like noticed that I was good with computers, and she literally was like, you should like study that. And I was like, really? And so, fast forward, I like pretty much left my home, packed up 2 suitcases, came to San Francisco. It's like, I didn't even have a MacBook, so I had to like buy one on OfferUp when I got to San Francisco for like $200. And it was super old and clunky, but I just like used that to kind of learn how to be an engineer. And then, the rest was history. But as far as my identity, definitely being Black and being a woman are 2 things that may be very uncommon. I do think that that's starting to change. In recent years, you see a lot of these programs that are trying to now push like a more kind of diverse, I don't know what you say, basically people who are not traditionally interested in like this type of field to join these companies. So I'm happy about that. And I also would say that there are times where you do kind of feel like, do I belong here? Do I fit in? Do people even respect my point of view? But it's something I've come to embrace because I realize that there are things that, we can really bring to the table and to the team. And we do have a unique perspective that oftentimes makes the product better. The people building the product should reflect the people using the product. So I think the more perspectives you can have, the more valuable the product will be to your users. And I kind of like, I'm not on like the business side of things, so it's a little more stuffy, but it's all valuable. And I'm happy that I did get to join this industry and that I do have this kind of wealth of experience to bring to the table that, doesn't even have anything to do with tech itself. And yeah, I would encourage anybody who's interested to just jump in, even if you feel like you have doubts or you don't know if you'll fit in, like do it anyways, make yourself fit in, and then, kind of show them why they need to bring more voices to the table.
Well, thanks, Ebony. And Melissa?
I also had a strange path into tech. As I mentioned earlier, my first degree was in political economy, and never in a million years did I think I would become a software engineer. So some of the identities that I think have shaped my path are the fact, well, obviously I'm a woman. Well, no, not obviously, but I identify as a woman. And I'm a first generation immigrant. And my parents were also immigrants to where I came from. So my Korean parents moved to Argentina. I was born there. And then I migrated from Argentina to here. And I think being an immigrant, coming from a low income background kind of shapes your path because it's not about like what your passions are. It's more about like what can you do, what can you get, and also not having a lot of guidance. When I went to college, I think I got into UC Berkeley kind of by luck. It was a surprise to everyone that I told, and it wasn't that I had a plan. And I think that really shaped my journey, because every time I moved into the next phase of my life, it wasn't a plan. It was what was available to me and what I needed at the time. So going into tech for me as a software developer was a need at that time. So I know a lot of people are like, I love technology, that's why I pursue it. But I was like, I need money, so that's why I'm pursuing it. And yeah, that part of my identity really shaped my drive to get into technology. And it has its barriers, you know, being a minority in tech. I mean, I am Asian, so, but I also identify as Latina. So like when I see not enough Latinx representation in the companies that I work for, it makes me really sad. And women are also pretty rare. Like Ebony said, like especially Black women, it's like a subset of women, it's even more rare. And I think that's really disappointing. So the more we can do to increase representation and to create pathways for minorities to go into tech, the better, because I think tech is such a powerful way to create intergenerational wealth, especially for like someone like me, where my family is new to the country. So we can create opportunities and build systems that, you know, help more people. So yeah, I'm like super passionate about this stuff.
Melissa, can you talk a little bit of, you know, you said you were in political economy, then how did you study up and get into software engineering?
Yes, good question. So I studied political economy, you know, care about social issues. And I took one computer science class in college. And I was just interested. I was like, oh, everyone wants to take computer science. What is this about? And it was called The Beauty and Joy of Computing. And it was taught in Scratch. And if anyone doesn't know what that is, it's a computer programming language where you drag and drop blocks. It's like a kid's toy, but you know, it taught us what we needed to know. And after college, I was like, okay, like that's it. I'm not doing programming ever again. And I landed into a job doing trust and safety at Twitter. And if you don't know what that is, it's the worst job you can have in tech. You look at horrifying imagery every day of your of your week. You're looking at you know, what you would consider NSFW, like not safe for work. It's your work now. So I did that for a bit. I thought, okay, this is not a career. I did some digital marketing as an internship. I hated it. I was like, not for me. And then I went back into trust and safety at Facebook, and again, didn't love it. I worked midnight to 8 a.m. at the end of that tenure. And around that time, I found that my dad was sick and I needed to make more money. And that was like the big push of, I need to make this career transition happen. I'm going to do it. And I applied to every coding boot camp that I could. I think I have a spreadsheet somewhere. I applied to 10 different boot camps. I applied to every scholarship. I went to freaking credit unions and say, hey, I need a loan for this. I tried everything. And I got really lucky because one of the boot camps I was accepted to had a partnership with Adobe. And Adobe ended up paying for my boot camp, which was $21,000. And they paid me a monthly stipend while I was doing it. And then they lined up an internship for me. And yeah, crazy times. Everything worked out. I'm still at Adobe now. Unfortunately, you know, my dad was sick. My dad did pass away like a few years ago. But I think because of the security that I got through my tech job, I was able to spend like the last month of his life like with him, and I was able to provide more than I could have otherwise. So go to tech.
Yeah. Wow, that's a dramatic story. Thank you, Melissa. I mean, let's segue then into people's first tech internship or your first internship. As I mentioned, many students here are going to be having their doing a summer internship. through my program, we offer internships to students, or we secure placements for students where they don't have to go through a technical interview, so they don't have to jump through all those hurdles, but it's still really competitive, right? Because we have only so many spots, and then we can offer a stipend for students so they get a little bit of money to go with it, so it's not unpaid. It's not ideal, but at least students get some of that experience. So because they haven't gone through the technical interview, I wonder like, oh, are we setting them up for even more challenge because they don't know if technically they'll be ready, all those kinds of things. So it'd be great to just hear from each of you about your first internship in tech. Just share what you did, what it was like, how you prepared. So I'll probably ask some follow-up questions, but maybe we can kind of start with that round. So who would like to start with that?
Here you go.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll count my first real internship as Slack. That's, I think it's a better story, but really my first real internship, for me to even get into the door, like you need experience to get experience for some reason. Am I frozen? Oh no, am I frozen? Okay, cool. So you need experience to get experience. So that was kind of like the roadblock for me, especially changing majors. I only had 3 years left at school, so I felt like I had a little bit less time to work with, and I really wanted to just get in the door. So originally I reached out to companies on AngelList, and I just begged to work for free. And to be honest, I got rejected by like over 100 companies, even though I was asking to work for free. And I was messaging people all day. Like I was only maybe 6 months into it, so I didn't have a lot of experience, but I was just really eager to learn. So my first real internship, someone eventually gave me a chance, and it wasn't very structured. I didn't really learn much from there, but it gave me a resume, and it gave me something to at least get my door and get my foot into the door with Slack. And I did that because I was also part of another program called Code 2040, which helps Black and Latinx people get into like bigger tech companies. And yeah, so being able to, it was kind of just a hustle to get into that very first spot, but finally getting into Slack. I was an iOS engineering intern, and going into it, I was extremely terrified. Everyone else being from like Long Beach, already identifying as Black and identifying as all the other things, imposter syndrome, it happens to everyone, I think. And it definitely happened to me, and I was definitely scared going in. And everyone else being from Berkeley and Stanford and all these very prestigious schools, they didn't really pay me much mind, and a lot of people didn't really have the confidence in me, and it didn't make me really have confidence in myself. So going into the beginning, I was extremely terrified, but I was in a place that I wanted to learn, and I really wanted to learn what I was doing. So I just gave it my all, and I went in there being okay with me giving my 100% and being okay with whatever happened at the end of it. So yeah, I went into there with an open mind, and I feel like I learned a lot through the experience.
Can you tell us like what you were working on, if you're, hopefully you remember what you were working on, and like how you like learned to do what you were doing? How was your supervisor? Maybe some of those like details.
Yeah, so my supervisor was, I feel like I got kind of lucky, and it was a rare instance. She identified as female, and she was Latinx as well. So we kind of came from a similar place where the rest of the team didn't really look like the rest of us. So I felt like she had my back from the beginning, but it was also still hurdles to jump over, because I wasn't coming from a place of a lot of experience, that I kind of had to beg for the projects that I wanted. And I had to like really kind of network and like find my way into the places that I wanted to be a part of the projects, to get into the projects that I wanted to be a part of. So originally I worked on a preview channel button. So originally in Slack, like if you just join a channel, or if you look at a channel, you would just automatically join it on the iOS app. So my first project was making it so you wouldn't do that, and you can have the option to actually join it. And this was actually expected to take my whole summer, but it only took 3 days. So I constantly was coming back to like ask for more work. And I felt, for me, that was a real confidence killer, even though like I was doing the work quickly, because it just felt like the expectations from me were so low that like I was just exceeding it like by far. So it actually put me in a place where I didn't really understand if I was accepted on this team, if people really like understood or like cared about what I was doing. But I still went there like willing to learn, willing to ask questions, and I made a lot of mistakes along the way. There's definitely times where I've ruined the code base and things weren't going as well, and people were yelling at me, but going in there and like just understanding that like I'm gonna make mistakes, and I saw other people and seeing other senior people make mistakes definitely made me feel better. But just being okay with making mistakes and just knowing that like I now need to move forward from there and need to learn how to fix that mistake and how to make sure I never make that mistake again. So I worked across a couple of different projects. I'm forgetting a lot of them, but I did like some international things. I ended up doing dark mode. I ended up doing a couple of things throughout the summer that it was a good learning experience for sure.
Wow, that was all in one summer. You did all those things.
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely a very involved summer. It's fun.
Wow. Can you share what that conversation looked like when you messed up the code base? Like, did they come to you and yell at you, or did you have to tell them, oops, I messed something up? What did that conversation look like?
Yeah, that conversation started in the morning, and I woke up to tons of messages of people like, "Hey, you did this," and pointing me out and kind of like throwing me under the bus. And I just had to accept it. Like I did do it, and I needed to figure out how to make it better. And I asked questions, and I just moved forward from there. So it wasn't like I felt like if I continued to just harp on like me causing the problem, I would have gotten stuck there, and I would have been very defeated. But instead, I just focused on like, okay, then how do we move forward? So that's the way I addressed the problem. And I think that got us through it pretty quickly.
Wow, you sound like just like, oh, just brush it off your shoulders. But how long ago was that, Anthony, when you had that experience?
That was the summer of 2016,
Oh, so 5 years ago now.
5 years ago. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And I'm sure like time also heals things. And so maybe if we had talked to you like 4 years ago, might not have been the same
Yeah,
kind of reflection.
definitely. I feel like as going into full time, I definitely had the same feelings and the same like me being full time and intern. There was definitely no difference in my mindset and the imposter syndrome. And every single day, even up to the very last day I was there, it always feels like I'm under fire and it feels like there's so much pressure on me. And all of it is very internal, and I'm putting pressure on myself because I want to exceed and I want to do well. Um, but yeah, it was just mainly that imposter syndrome just never leaves. So it's kind of something that I had to continue to deal with. And even though it kind of sounded like I brushed it off, like I still had to fight through that same mental pain that everybody did.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. We'll come back and kind of ask more follow-up. So let's hear from either Melissa or Ebony who wants to go next.
I guess I can go.
Sure.
So my first technical internship was at Adobe, and it was through this program called the Adobe Digital Academy. That's how I ended up working here. And I have similar experiences like Anthony. I broke the whole website one time, and I had to stay at work till like 7 p.m. to get it working again. But, it wasn't like finger pointing. It wasn't like no one made me feel bad about it. And I think that's important. And if anyone makes you feel bad about something, you should push back and say, you shouldn't make me feel bad about it, because making mistakes is part of learning. And what I've learned in my current role now after my internship, I'm on a different team now, but my manager told me that if anything goes wrong, it's everyone's responsibility. Like, let's say I merge something into the code base and it's caught later, like a month later. And I'm like, oh no, I made that mistake. However, how many people's eyes were on this piece of on this change that no one else caught it? Why is it just my responsibility, right? And I think it's important for us to note that all the success and all of the failure belongs to everybody, not just your successes and not just your failures. So you need to share the glory with people, and that means also sharing the failures. Let's see.
Do you want to maybe say more like specifically what you actually worked on? Because I know that's one thing I'm always curious, like what does an internship actually involve? Are you just sitting with computer coding? Like what were the projects that you were working on?
It really depends on the team. So I got really lucky that after my coding bootcamp, which centered on full stack web development, I went to work on a web project. But that's not true for everybody. The first 2 weeks of my internship, they put me on this, I had to make a status page with PHP. And I was like, I didn't learn that. And I spent like the first 2 weeks of my internship, like terrified and confused and feeling imposter syndrome super hard. And I swear, I came to work, I sat down on my computer, I stared at the page, I tried a little bit Googling, I looked at some resources, and then realized I still didn't know anything. And what helped me get out of that. It wasn't that someone came up to me and said, hey, Melissa, why aren't you doing like your work, blah, blah, blah. Because when you're an intern, your job is to learn, like you're learning. So if you're staring at your screen and you're looking up resources and you're looking at classes and you're learning, you're doing your job. But then I realized people are paying me a lot of money just to sit here. So I ended up starting to make those relationships happen. So I would meet with different people on my team and say, hey, can I have like 10 minutes of your time? Can I have lunch with you? Can I do coffee with you? And slowly I started getting an image of what everyone on the team did and what they knew. And believe me, no one knows everything. So, get to know what everyone's strengths are and then tap into that and they become your friends. So I relied heavily on our SRE. Like he was like a DevOps guy, and I told him I don't know what I'm doing, and he's like, oh, just come over here. And I just stood next to him, and he's like, you do this and you do that, and then he started like doing it for me, and I was like, okay. So I didn't learn anything from that first project. Let me be very clear. But after that was out of the way, and those horrible first few weeks with that side project, they let me work on production code. So we were working on creativecloud.adobe.com, and that's where you look at all of your assets and you can download your products from it. And we worked on the first iteration of that page, and I got to work on the what was it? The assets component. So it would have like little pictures of all of the things that you worked on. You can remove, delete, and it's pulling from all these random sources. So that was really challenging as well. And at one point I introduced a bug that, had an infinity loop in it, and like the page broke, like it just didn't do anything. And it wasn't a blame game, which I think helped me a lot in that moment. And even my manager stayed late. Like my manager stayed late, my mentor stayed late, and we all looked at the problem together and fixed it. And then we went home and we're like, oh, we learned something from that. Okay, later.
Can you say a little bit more about your manager and what kind of supervisor they were for you?
Oh, I can say a lot about my manager. My internship manager is one of the least professional people I've ever met, and everyone who meets him agrees with me. He's always cracking jokes. He always wants to go out to eat with everyone. He sometimes when he was used to give me advice, he'd be like, okay, Melissa, I'm not supposed to say this, but this is what I actually think about what you should do or say. And I'm like, okay, great, thank you. Like, I think having managers who can be that candid with you is really powerful. And I wish more managers were that way, because it builds this trust. And then you can tell them when you have problems, and you can tell them when what you're actually doing or planning to do. And I think that was really valuable for me. My mentor, on the other hand, she was completely different. And I'm not saying that we didn't have a bond, but she was really professional, really like put together. And now she's a manager too. Like, a few years later, she's her own manager. And I think that was really wonderful, having those two sides of what a tech supervisor can look like someone who's really easygoing or someone who's like really invested in structure and being, like proper. And they were both amazing people, and both people I consider friends. So yeah, I think I love it at Adobe. Like, people are really great.
And you can have backgrounds like that for work.
Yeah, you can have backgrounds like this. This the same one I use at my meetings.
I think it's interesting to see, maybe there's a theme of people who are willing to take on interns, hopefully are more caring people who are willing to like work with you or to accept the mistakes. So that's something to consider. And hopefully the ones that aren't like that are not taking on interns. So
Yeah.
maybe that's some potential to get through some of the nervousness I know people are feeling here.
I also think it's important to note that if your mistake is so expensive that people are coming after you, that means there's a problem with the system, not with you. So like when I was working on this product, there are stages in which the changes go through. Like first you're in like your dev environment, then you're in your stage environment, then that goes into production. So if your mistake is costing the company lots of money because it went straight into production, instead of feeling guilty, like let's all take an opportunity to learn from this and maybe change and do things better and minimize the impact of mistakes, because making mistakes should be normal and it should be encouraged, because you're not going to learn anything if everything works the first time. Like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of, maybe, is this what you're saying, is like, if your mistake as an intern has a multi-million-dollar effect, then it's not your problem, it's their problem for giving you that assignment, right? Like, or not having in the safeguards along the way to make sure it's not going to be a multi-million-dollar mistake. So yeah, that's definitely something to think about, and not to beat yourself up about it, and not to be like, well, it's your fault for not doing this, but how do you like kind of balance the feedback or the pushback that it's all your fault and now you're like out the door. Yeah, that's interesting thought to have. Thanks, Melissa. Ebony, what about you and your first internship experience?
Yeah, so when I was in school, I specialized in data science. I did web development at first, but I was like, I kind of wanted to do something else. I kind of moved into like the data part of things. And so at first I did do a fellowship with Major League Hacking to work on like open source web development projects. And I wasn't like very interested, to be honest. I wasn't that engaged. I wasn't like hungry for the work because it wasn't the work that I wanted to be doing. So when I got another opportunity at Planet Labs, I was a developer relations intern. And Planet Labs is like a geospatial data company. So basically they send satellites up into space that take images of the entire Earth every day. And then people use those images, like governments use those images, media people, like literally everyone just has their own reasons for wanting those images. Some of them are like, you know, a little sketch, but you know, whatever, that's not my decision to make. But it was really cool because I got to write like Python scripts so that taught their customers how to use the API to like get access to the images and stuff. And I felt like my experience was a little different because I started my internship during COVID, so it was remote. I didn't get to like go to somebody's desk and be like, hey, like, can you show me this, stuff like that. So I feel like I kind of missed out on a lot of the networking stuff. I mean, you can on Zoom, but it's not quite the same, I think. So I figured out a lot of problems by myself. Like my manager would give me an assignment and I would literally I knew nothing about geospatial data, by the way. That was like my first time working with it. So, I mean, I just hopped on Google, I hopped on Stack Overflow, YouTube, whatever resources that I could access to learn what all of this stuff is and then how to use it. That was what I did. And then I would come back to my manager and I would be like, okay, this is the script that I created. And she was like, you don't have questions and stuff? And I'm like, no, figured it out. Should have asked questions because to be honest, I probably could have finished my assignment way quicker if I would have like used my resources, but I can be a little stubborn sometimes. So I would just go in and try to do it all myself. And I would think that like if I had to give advice, it's to like make use of your manager. Like don't go in there like, I got this, I know everything. You're an intern. Like, no, you don't. So like talk to people, tell them what you don't know and use it as a learning opportunity. And then network as well, because I really wanted to like stay at Planet. Like now I'm at Athena, and so I'm kind of happy the way things worked out. But I felt like if I would have like talked more and been more sociable and actually like really shown how enthusiastic I was about Planet, then that leads to a full-time opportunity if that's what you want, like at the end of the internship. So that was kind of my takeaway. I was like, dang, I wish I would have like, even though I did great work and like, you know, they'll still like write me recommendations and stuff. I wish I would have integrated myself into the culture more. So then maybe that would have led to a full-time role. But, you know, things work out as they should. So that's kind of my 2 cents with the internship.
Ebony, I'm curious if you could speak more about that virtual aspect of it. Like, do you think that's what made it hard to do the networking? And many of them are going to be doing virtual internships this summer because, you know, companies aren't necessarily taking people to their companies. Like, what could you have done differently if you were in that virtual space that could have enabled that?
I think make time for one-on-ones since people don't have that FaceTime with you, it's really important that they get to see you or that they have those interactions. So like whenever you're not working on a project, like hit people for like coffee chats or lunch. See if there's another team that you're interested in, see if they have like some work that they can throw you, like, hey, you know, I heard you're working on this. I know I'm just an intern, but is there any way I can contribute? Tell people what you want to learn and then see if they're willing to like make time to teach it to you. So I think it's really just about putting yourself out there and sending that Google chat or Slack message or whatever y'all use, and then getting time in with them, and people will start to notice and build that rapport with you. And then when it comes time to maybe make an offer or whatever the case may be, I think they'll have you in mind because they did get that FaceTime with you while you were an intern.
Yeah, I think that's something to keep in mind, right? Like, I mean, even if the internship is not at a company you totally want, like it's always a stepping stone. So being able to work for a full year somewhere, even if it's not exactly in your field, put something on your resume that you can then step on to the next place. So I think every opportunity, keeping that in mind as like a step to another opportunity, and what are the things you can do while you're in your current situation to network with people that are in an area that you want to check out. It sounds like networking is definitely a key part of that. Maybe it'd be helpful to just hear, so I think we talk about networking and like the importance of it, but can y'all like talk about what does that really look like? Like, is that an email? Is that like, how do you talk to a person? What are the things that you say? Because it's even like, you know, I talked with students often, like go to office hours, go see an instructor. And if you don't have a problem you're working on, like, what do you even say? So can somebody share, like, what are literally things that you say to people to start that, like to break the ice, to do that networking when you were in your internship experiences, especially? Like giving people a script, is there something that people can say?
I guess I'll start since I didn't remute myself or whatever. I would say like literally just hit them like, hey, my name is such and such. You know, I know you're busy, but do you have 15 minutes to chat? I'm really interested in X, Y, and Z. Like if you know what team they're on and you're interested in that, like I really want to learn more about this team. Do you mind talking to me? Or I really love data and analytics. Like I'd love to know how you got to where you are. Like, can you tell me more about your history? Like anything like that, just connecting on common interests. You can stalk them on LinkedIn, like they won't be offended. It's seen as resourceful. So you can look on LinkedIn. Maybe they are from Florida and you're from Florida. Like you could be like, hey, I'm from Florida too. Like, you know, and just like anything that you can use to start a conversation, honestly. Most people are open to speaking with you if you make that first jump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah. What about Melissa and Anthony?
In my experience, when I did my boot camp, we were given like an assignment to do informational interviews when we were looking for jobs. And this was really helpful because it, you know, forced us to go out there and reach out to people and say, hey, I'd love to learn about how you got to where you are. And then pro tip, like don't ask for a job in the first reach out. Just say, hey, I really want to know about what you do. This is what I do. This is what I know. And the ones that have been really successful that I've received are people saying, hey, like, how can we help each other? Do I know someone that you that could help you? And I think that's really beautiful because people think of networking as this top-down relationship, but it's like a mutual relationship. Like if I were to connect with Ebony, it's like, hey, Ebony, like, who do you know? What do you want to do? And then she'll ask me the same thing. And then we'll, you know, use our networks to create bridges. And piggybacking on her experience with her internship, I had a really positive experience on my internship because it was face-to-face. So I got to create those relationships. And I think it's really important for people to know that tech is a very small industry. Like people that I may have worked with like on a small project may move on to any of all these amazing tech companies and remember that they worked with me and that they liked working with me, and they will refer me to those companies. Or I can reach out to them and say, hey, Charles or Neha, like, remember me? Like I'm really interested in working for like Google, and I noticed that you have some connections at Google? Can you make a recommendation or an introduction? Like your network is just like a group of friends. And I also recommend joining technical networks. I'm part of Tequeria, and it's a Latinx tech network. And they have channels for finding jobs, channels for advice, channels just to talk about the news, like anything that you could think of. And they have these types of networks for most underrepresented minorities in tech. So they have like, I'm sure there's like Black networks I don't know about. There's Google Tech Makers for women. There's Girls Who Code. There's so many organizations that you can join. There's also LGBTQ like specific networks. And once you join them, you are tapping to this network of people who want to see representation grow for these groups. And you got each other's back. You have advice. You can talk about negotiations for interviews, everything. And it's a safe space to talk about these issues.
Anything to add to that, Anthony?
Yeah, at least as an intern, I didn't really see the importance of networking as important as it should have been. I wish I did, but I didn't at the time. So it was definitely just a regret afterwards. But me being a part of Code 2040 already, that was my community and my way of networking. There was probably like 70 or 80 people my age and people that wanted to do the same things in there. So that was a way for me to automatically be networking. But even in the job, it was just about being myself and being genuinely interested in other people. And that was just the way I was able to network, was just like who are you, what do you do, why do you do it, and kind of just figuring out the person and not really thinking about what's going to come out of it, and not like expecting them to give me a job or anything like that. It was just me wanting to get to know them as a person. And I think that's what networking has kind of just become for me.
Yeah, I think definitely networking has become this like scary, like capital N kind of thing, where there's a lot of pressure put on it because you're doing it for a job or you're doing it for an end. But I think that's where we talked about this a little bit last week for those of you who were here, but just the importance of networking when you're not under pressure. Like if you're in an internship and the goal is learning, because internships, the goal is learning, which is hopefully what the intern placement should also understand, then using that as an opportunity to say, hey, to your supervisor, are there other people that I could meet that might have some time to meet with me as an intern, that would be willing to do a Zoom call, and taking advantage of those opportunities. And since we're in Zoom, it's easy enough to schedule a half an hour meet and greet. You don't have to like go across campus or try to meet somebody who's in a different state, which often companies might have employees all over the country. Okay, why don't we take a little bit and do some breakouts. So I'm putting in the chat box a form. And so we've got 3 speakers, Melissa, Anthony, and Ebony. And if you could just fill out if you've got a preference, and if you're okay with anybody, then just hopefully that's also all right. I'm going to try to make the groups somewhat equal, and then we will divide you up. So if you could fill out the form, I'm going to stop it at this point, the recording, and then so hopefully you all got to chat with folks a little bit more. And I like to do breakout rooms. I know it can sometimes feel weird, but I like to do it because sometimes just sitting to listen to people for an hour and a half can be a bit much. So hopefully at least you got to hear a little bit of more specifics and got to share your own thoughts too. What I'd like to do is we're going to wrap up. We have about 15 minutes. And what I'd like to do first, actually, for those tech course students, y'all know that I always like to do surveys. So I'm going to put a survey in the chat box for y'all to just give feedback. And while you're doing that, what I'd like to do is have the speakers just think about like final advice or tips, strategies that you would want to impart on our students here. So just give some thoughts. Like, what do you wish you knew before you headed out into your first tech internship that nobody told you, or that maybe somebody did tell you and you thought it was great advice? So if you could think on that while the students are filling out this short survey, and then we'll wrap up with your last pieces of advice. Oh,
So
sorry.
no, you're good. So Clap is it's a people analytics tool, which people analytics is kind of an emerging field in HR of just understanding how organizations work and how people work together. But we created a tool to recognize team players and encourage a more collaborative culture. And I feel like the product is less so important than the mission. And our mission really is that we want to make people happy and make people feel part of a group bigger than themselves and feel part of a team. And we definitely think that like work is such a big part of people's lives that when they get the recognition and appreciation from work, they'll carry that throughout the rest of the day and they'll be better husbands and better wives and better people all around. And that's really what we're after, is making people happy and making people feel good, So that is what Clap is, very vague and quick, but that
Do you
it
have a
is
website yet or anything to put in
yeah,
the?
it is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can put that in the
Cool,
chat.
cool.
Cool.
And then if you want to share your, like what you wish you knew before your first internship.
Yeah, what I wish I knew before the first internship, I would definitely say it was the networking piece. I definitely have heard it many times, and I feel like a lot of people hear it and it kind of goes in and out one ear, and we can kind of let fear kind of hold us back from doing what we know we're supposed to do or know we want to do. And I kind of was subject to that, where I just let fear stop me from doing the things that I felt like I should have been doing and I really wanted to do. So my biggest lesson was just, you know, being okay with being uncomfortable and being okay with tackling that fear of whether it's reaching out to someone random across the company or whatever it is, or even just like being able to make a mistake. That's huge. And yeah, the biggest takeaway is just not letting fear hold you back from the decisions that you make, and continuing to network. It was the biggest lesson.
Great, thanks, Anthony.
Mhm.
Ebony or Melissa, who wants to go next?
I guess I can go.
Great.
I have three things. The first one is mentorship. It's so important, either at your job or outside of it. Like, seek people who can help you, who can answer questions, who can guide you, and build your confidence. The second one is the thing about imposter syndrome. Like, first of all, it shouldn't feel normal to feel out of place, but also if you do feel it, instead of beating yourself up about it, like, oh no, I shouldn't feel imposter syndrome, you should realize that it's a signal from your environment that you're in a challenging place and that it's an opportunity for you to grow. So this is what I tell everyone who feels bad about feeling imposter syndrome, is that if you feel completely at ease and like everything's easy, you're at the wrong job. You're not being challenged and you're not learning. And finally, especially for underrepresented minorities, like, don't internalize the bad stories. So don't listen about like harassment and like racism and all of these awful things that people attribute to tech and then expect it. Like, obviously keep your eyes open and be wary and take care of yourself and your space and your boundaries, but don't go into any space expecting people to mistreat you, because you're not going to have a good time and you're going to struggle through building relationships.
Great, thank you. Ebony.
Yes. I think go into it with an open mind for sure, and know what you want out of it though. Like, I think I went into some of my first internships and I didn't really know what I was trying to get out of the experience. And I think if you know what you want and then you share that with your manager, then your manager can help guide you to, get whatever experience you're supposed to have. Because as much as you feel like they're giving you, or you're giving them a chance in a sense, or no, excuse me, as much as you feel like they're giving you this opportunity, like, you're also giving them a chance, and it should be a mutually beneficial relationship. So sometimes you have to like your manager is like, you're not coming to our one-on-ones, you're not putting stuff on my schedule, you're not giving me projects, like, why am I here? So, don't say it like that, but, just go to your manager and just like, don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. So I think that that's like a big part of it. And even just like, and don't forget the tiny like professional stuff, like, show up to the Zoom call, like ready to be on camera, like, engage with people, like talk about the weather and stuff. Like a lot of stuff, especially like when you're like an engineer and stuff, can seem like really annoying. But I think just like it helps to build relationships and build your credibility and stuff. It's just like to remember those little things, even though you're just going to be interns, because it's like your brand. So that's what they tell us at Athena, like what's your personal brand, and then make sure that that's being represented every time you're in the room.
That's great. I appreciate your reminders, Ebony, about the Zoom. And I know a lot of folks don't have their video on, and I can understand, you know, this is not exactly the professional space, but keeping that in mind, that that makes an impression. And if it means having to find a location in your house, getting dressed, you know, doing the makeup thing, if you do that, like, what are the ways you can present yourself if you're going to be in a virtual internship? That's really important to think about. So I appreciate that too, Ebony. And I think one other thing I'm hearing was the relationship with your supervisor, your manager is going to make a difference, and really approach that with the mentality like, this person's here to help you. Remember, hopefully they're in a situation that they're not being forced into this. I mean, maybe some people got forced to be the internship manager and they're not wanting to do it. But like Melissa said too, like you have to go in with an open, positive mind, take advantage of that relationship and really make sure like that person's your entryway into this company. And how do you build that relationship in a positive way? So from day one, like how do you think about this person as your advocate, as your mentor, even if they're not the personality type you thought they'd be, even if they're like, you know, the polar opposites that Melissa shared with her mentor and her supervisor, like how do you think about this person and the relationship you're building with them? So as a wrap up, what I'd like for all the students to do is think about like all that you've heard today. There's been a lot of great advice, a lot of great experiences. I love hearing the experiences of messing up the code base, which I think would be terrifying. Think of one word that you're feeling, that you're thinking about now from all that you've heard today. So just write it in the chat, but don't press enter. Just write it in the chat, let it hover there until I say go, and then I'll tell you when to press enter. So just think of one word, one phrase of how you're feeling, what you're reflecting on from today's panel. And I'll give you a minute. If the panelists also want to put in a word or phrase, then feel free to do that too. And don't hit enter until I say to go. So I expect to see 16 words or phrases in the chat box. Okay, on the count of three. 1, 2, 3, enter. I've heard this called waterfall, this technique in Zoom, which I think is a cool way to call it. So optimistic, energized, inspired, prepared, ask questions, great, optimistic, excited, ready, confident, woohoo. So thank you so much. I just want to thank you all, the three of you, for sharing. Like I said, I met you all on LinkedIn or over email, and I really had no idea what to expect, but I think you all shared such wonderful complimentary stories. Really, really appreciate it. So can people give it up to them? You can use your reactions, you can go off mute and just say thank you, however you want to appreciate our three speakers today. Really want to appreciate your time on a Friday afternoon where maybe you're working or should be working, but took time off on Zoom to be with us today. Thank you all so much. Do you have any final thoughts or words before we sign off?
I would say definitely reach out to me. I dropped my LinkedIn there earlier. You can ask me questions at any time and I'll be there to answer. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn nowadays too, so that's probably the best place to reach me, but anyone can contact me or anything anytime.
Great. Any other final thoughts?
You know, don't fear the future and, you know, go after your true potential. I know like we shy away from opportunities because we think we're not good enough, but you are, okay? Don't listen to that BS.
Yes, thank y'all for listening, and same here, reach out anytime. If you need anything or you just want someone to answer questions or bounce ideas off of, I'm definitely willing to talk.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. TechCore people, we're ending early. Yahoo! That's it for me. I'm going to stick around if anybody has any questions. I know some of the summer interns, maybe you might have questions, or TechCore people, but otherwise feel free to sign off. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Have a great weekend and take good care.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See y'all.